Unless you want your illustrations to look like this, you need to make sure that your illustrator can actually do the job. So before you book them for the overall book project, you need to make sure that you are asking for a test image before you start that journey with them. Now, this is something that I encourage all of my clients that I work with who are bringing their books from the paper to reality to do, and I do this as well when it comes to my own writing process as well. It's an extra step that you take across the journey of writing your own picture book. But I think it's a step that you should not overlook because it makes the illustration process so much easier and a lot clearer for both parties, the author and the illustrator, when you include this step in at the very beginning. Now, you may be wondering, why do you need a test image over a portfolio? And you also may be wondering, what the heck are these words all together, Charisma? Well, let's break it down. Now, a portfolio is something that you're probably more used to seeing. A lot of authors have them on their own websites, or if they're on a third-party website like Fiverr or Upwork, or even on their social media pages. A portfolio is a collection of images that they've done. And that is something that most illustrators across the board have easily available for people to view before they then book them for the overall project. Now, that is a path that a lot of people take. They look up an illustrator, look at their portfolio, agree to a price, and start the process. But what I'm asking you to do is add an extra step to that at the very beginning, where you are looking for an illustrator, you look at their portfolio, but before you book them for the actual book project, what I want you to do is to do a test image with them before you fully commit to a project. Think of it like going on a first date with someone. So basically this test image is your first date with that illustrator before you full on commit to a relationship with them for however many months it's gonna take them to create that book. Now for this test image experiment, what I want you to do is to find 3 to 5 illustrators who have an illustration style that you like, a portfolio that you have enjoyed looking at, and they're in a price range that you're able and willing to pay before you start this conversation with them. And I say 3 to 5 because things do happen. You know, one of the things we're always worried about when it comes to finding an illustrator, especially when you're self-published, are that sometimes you pay people up front and they disappear and then you never hear from them again, or they turn in something that you really don't like, or sometimes illustrators are putting up images on their portfolio, but that's not actually their work as well. And that's also a big reason why I love to do the test images, because I can steal someone's images online and say that they're mine, and then when someone comes to me for illustrations, I just take the money and run, or I don't actually have the same matching art style because I've lied and done different images up front. And so doing a test image process really helps you to make sure that the illustration style that people are saying they can actually do, and they're not just lying to you. But doing at least 3 to 5, because some people are going to ghost you. When I was working on Precious Love, for example, I picked out 5 illustrators. 2 of the 5 ghosted me. Never heard from them again. Luckily, I was using a platform called Fiverr where people get paid after the work is done. And so they did not get paid from me because they did not finish the project, which I was really grateful for using Fiverr in that capacity. So that way I didn't end up losing money in that sense, but they still ghosted me, which is an experience that I know a lot of people have. And so I only ended up having 3 test images to go off of when it came to figuring out what illustrator I wanted to use for Precious Love. When you reach out to them, have your standard message, my name is, I'm working on this, can we do a test image? But I also like to, in that process of saying, I'm working on this, to do your story pitch, to include for them what your story is gonna be about, so that way they can get a vibe. Like, yes, I want you to draw my main character. Like for Precious Love, for example, my main character, her name is Takara, and I want you to draw a young girl who looks like she's possibly like in the 2nd or 3rd grade. But also letting them know, like, this is a story that's going to be about blank. And then seeing where they go with that as well, because I think that's also such a valuable part of the process when it comes to illustrating a story, because pictures and the words are supposed to work together in the picture book to tell the story. And so there's gonna be times in your story where the illustrations have to do more than the words, or the illustrations are the main thing conveying the story. So if your illustrator understands the themes or the lessons that you're trying to push forth in the story, it's great to see that even within a test image, right, of how they're interpreting that. So for example, for my book, Precious Love, it's about a young girl named Takara who has a blended family. And so she has a father-daughter dance at her school. And even though she has a dad in the form of her stepdad, that's not the dad that she actually wants to go to that school dance with. And so giving my illustrators that creed and that responsibility of I want you to draw Takara. Here's what her overall story is going to be about, and letting them interpret that and however they are going to interpret it. So that way you can understand how they're understanding your story to see if you guys are on the same page. So overall, when it comes to doing this test image experiment, the values of doing it are pretty simple. Number one, you want to make sure the people that you want to do your illustrations can actually do the illustration. So you want to make sure they can actually draw. Number two, you want to see if they can align your illustration style with the vision that you have in mind. And the last thing you want to see is that you want to see how your communication style works. Are they someone that's going to give you a lot of pushback? Are they someone that's more collaborative? Are they someone that's just going to take your idea, work on it independently, and just send you the final project when it's done? And when it comes to communication style, there's no right answer, right? You may prefer them to work independently, don't say anything to you until they're done. You may prefer them to do periodic check-ins with you just to make sure things are going well. You may prefer to be hands-on every page spread, whatever that may be. But it's important that you know that going into that, so that way you guys can decide that together. So it's not a weird thing of all of a sudden you're overbearing or all of a sudden you're just really hands-off. You've talked about your communication style in the very beginning, because that's also so important to make the whole illustration process just more relaxing. So going back to my experience, I'm gonna throw on the screen my test images that I got for Precious Love. And of course, because you can see my book right here, you can obviously see which one I ended up going with. But each illustrator took it a different way. And I enjoyed the fact that they took it a different way because, again, I didn't just say draw Takara, but I said, here's the overall story here and how would you interpret it? And so what was really interesting was how one illustrator chose to go the extra mile of also including Takara with a parent to kind of have that dynamic of, oh, they're at the father-daughter dance at school. So I got to see what it would look like if they drew just a kid, but also an adult, which was interesting to see them go the extra mile. Another illustrator drew Takara like crying, basically to showcase like, oh, she's really like conflicted about this father-daughter dance. And so basically doing a scene from the book possibly of what she could look like in those emotions, which I also thought was a really great interpretation of the story of, okay, what would Takara look like, not just standing rigidly, but also just in the midst of motion within the story, which was great to see them doing in that way. And then we just have an image where she's just standing there and smiling, looking cute in the dress. And I bring this up because it's so important to know that illustrators all do the same thing differently. They're all gonna have the same task, but approach it in different ways. And that's why it's important for you to experiment with a few of them just to see what they come up with. That's something that you didn't even think about. And that's the beauty of working with someone, is that they bring something new to the table. While I enjoyed all these images, I ended up going with the one where she's in a blue dress, standing very cutesy in her dress. No, it's not her with her father. No, it's not her like in the midst of a scene, which is something that I thought was really interesting. But what really tipped the scale for me was the communication style between me and that illustrator. So with the other illustrators, nothing was wrong with how we communicated with each other. But what I really liked about the illustrator that I ended up going with was how she pushed me in a positive way. Because I don't know if you relate to this or not, but when you are self-publishing a book and you are working really hard on it, you are making every single decision, dotting every I, crossing every T. You know, you get decision overload. And I had reached that point when it came to the illustration process where I was like, I have just made so many decisions. I've done so much. I don't care. Like I care, but I don't care anymore. Like just do the images so I can figure out who's gonna do my illustrations so we can move forward. I just wanna keep moving forward. But I was just decision overloaded. And my illustrator, she asked me, okay, so you said all these things that you want in your story, and all these things that you want Takara to be, but tell me more. Like what you say you want her hair in an afro. Tell me more about the kind of hairstyle that you want her to have. You say you want her in a blue dress. How do you imagine that blue dress being? And I honestly told my illustrator, I don't not care at this point. Just do the illustrations. I'm tired. I have other things to do. And she was like, you do actually care. This does matter to you. I'm gonna come back to you in a day and think about it, and we'll make a decision about it. And at first I was like, did she just tell me to go for a walk? Who does she think she is? But I took that minute, I took that walk, I calmed down, and she was right. I did care a lot more. I was just in a space personally where I was just really tired and overwhelmed. And So after that point, we got back together, had those communications about what I wanted once I really thought about it. And I really appreciated that. And that let me know if I choose this illustrator, not only am I getting this kind of art style, but I'm gonna get someone who is invested in my book as well. She also was willing to challenge me in a positive way, to push me in a positive way that I may not have been comfortable doing. And that was one of the main reasons why I chose my illustrator, not just for her art style, but because of how she communicated with me and the level of character she had. But I only would have found that out in the beginning because I did that test image experiment. The illustration process takes a few months to accomplish. So you want to make sure that you are working with someone who can not only do the job, but someone you enjoy and can actually work with. Now, if you've enjoyed what you've heard so far in this video, be sure to subscribe to The Author's Heartbeat so that way you don't miss an update as new videos drop on this page. Because this is the place that writers go to find clarity, confidence, and community. And we're so glad to have you here so that we can support you every step of the way.